Famous personalities like Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates have all praised the Feynman technique as one of their effective learning strategies. This technique, named after its creator, the renowned physicist Richard Feynman, is a potent tool for learning and retaining new information. It's not just a learning strategy, it's a gateway to mastery. Richard Feynman was not just a famous physicist, he was a remarkable teacher. He had a knack for breaking down complex ideas into simple, digestible concepts that anyone could understand. This unique ability led him to create the Feynman technique, a method of learning that goes beyond passive absorption to active engagement. Warren Buffett, a titan of the financial world, has spoken about how the Feynman technique has helped him understand complex financial concepts. Elon Musk, a pioneer in tech innovation, has also acknowledged the power of this technique. And Bill Gates, one of the most influential figures in the tech industry, has praised this method, stating it has been instrumental in his success. So what is this powerful technique that these successful entrepreneurs swear by? The Feynman technique revolves around 4 key steps. Firstly, you pick a topic and study it, not just skim through it, but truly understand it. Secondly, you explain this topic as if you were teaching it to someone else. This step is crucial because teaching forces you to simplify and clarify the concepts in your mind. The third step is to identify any gaps in your understanding. If you stumble or falter while explaining, it means there's a gap in your knowledge. Instead of glossing over it, you go back to your study material and fill that gap. The final step is repetition. You repeat this process until you can explain the concept in a simple, clear way with confidence. This step ensures that the knowledge sticks and gives you the confidence to apply it. Once you start using the Feynman technique, you can master any subject you want. You might be wondering, does the Feynman technique truly work? The answer is a resounding yes. Let's dive into some scientific evidence that proves the efficacy of this approach. In 2024, an intriguing study was published by Rito's Multidisciplinary Research Journal. This study aimed to test the effectiveness of the Feynman technique among students of various age groups. The study's design was straightforward but robust. Students in grades 4, 7 and 11 were selected at random to participate. These students were split into 2 groups. The first group, known as the experimental group, was instructed to use the Feynman technique to study. The second group, or the control group, studied as they normally would without using this specific method. Before the experiment began, all students took a pre-test to establish a baseline for their understanding and retention of the subject matter. After a set period of studying, the students took a post-test. The goal was to measure any improvements in comprehension and retention between the 2 groups. The findings were nothing short of remarkable. The students in the experimental group, those who had been using the Feynman technique, had significantly higher post-test scores compared to their pre-test scores. Even more impressive, these students also outperformed the control group on the post-test. But the benefits didn't stop at improved test scores. The study found that the students who used the Feynman technique also retained the information better. They were not just cramming for a test and then forgetting the material. They were truly learning and internalizing the information, which is the ultimate goal of any learning process. So the next time you're faced with a challenging topic or a hefty amount of material to learn, give the Feynman technique a try. It's not just a study hack or a shortcut, it's a scientifically backed method for effective learning and long-term retention. The results were astounding, showcasing that the experimental group who used the Feynman technique had higher test scores and retained the information better than the control group. Now, how can you use this technique? Suppose you have an important science exam coming up and you're struggling with the concept of photosynthesis. Let's apply the Feynman technique to this scenario. Start by picking the topic, in this case, photosynthesis. Study it thoroughly, read about it, watch videos, or even listen to podcasts. Immerse yourself in the knowledge and try to understand it as deeply as possible. Once you feel like you have a grasp of the topic, it's time for step 2. Try to explain the concept of photosynthesis as if you were teaching it to someone else. You could do this to a real person or even to an imaginary one. The key is to use simple language, as if you were explaining it to a 5-year-old. This is where the magic happens. As you articulate the process of photosynthesis, the sunlight being absorbed, the water and carbon dioxide being transformed, and oxygen being released, you'll start to see the areas where your understanding is not as solid as you thought. This brings us to step 3. Identify the gaps in your understanding. Maybe you're unsure about how the sunlight gets converted into energy, or the role of chlorophyll in the process. These are the areas you need to go back and study more. Finally, you keep repeating this process, studying, teaching, and identifying gaps until you can explain the concept of photosynthesis in a simple, clear way. This is step 4, and it's the point where you can confidently say you've mastered the topic. Remember, the Feynman technique isn't just about memorizing facts. It's about understanding concepts at their core and being able to explain them in simple terms. This process forces you to break down complex ideas into manageable, understandable chunks. It highlights the areas where you need more study and strengthens the knowledge you already have. By using the Feynman technique, you're not only learning the material but also gaining a deeper understanding of the subject. With this method, you're not just preparing for an exam, you're cultivating a lifelong skill of effective learning. Now that you know how to use the Feynman technique, you might be wondering about its benefits. Well, the perks are many. The Feynman technique is a powerhouse for comprehension, enabling you to grasp complex concepts by breaking them down into simple, understandable chunks. It's like having a translator for complicated ideas, making them accessible and digestible. Moreover, this technique supercharges your memory. By teaching the subject matter, you're reinforcing the information in your mind, leading to better retention. It's like building a mental fortress around the knowledge, making it harder for it to escape your memory. And let's not forget about confidence. When you're able to explain a complex topic with ease, it boosts your self-assurance. You're no longer a passive learner, but an active teacher, possessing a commanding understanding of the subject. The Feynman technique is not just a study tool, it's a lifelong learning strategy that can be applied to any subject matter. Having discussed the Feynman technique and its advantages, it's now time to put this method to the test. Let's take a real-life example of a complex topic: quantum physics. Using the Feynman technique, we start by identifying the concept we want to understand. Next, we research and study the topic until we think we've got a good grasp of it. Then we attempt to explain it as if we were teaching it to a 5th grader. If we stumble or find gaps in our understanding, we return to our sources for a better comprehension. So, quantum physics. It's the study of the tiniest particles in the universe and how they behave. Imagine, if you will, a tiny, tiny world where the rules we're used to don't always apply. Particles can be in 2 places at once, and they can even affect each other from a distance. Sounds like magic, right? But it's not. It's just the way our strange and wonderful universe works at the smallest levels. See how we've taken a complex idea and made it understandable. That's the power of the Feynman technique. But don't just take our word for it. Try it yourself. Use the Feynman technique for a topic you've been struggling with and see the difference. That's it for today's video on the Feynman technique. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more educational content. Remember, study smarter, not harder. See you in the next video.